going to come out the shade bit, and we'll talk about quilting and why I've changed from sleeping bags. I have a down sleeping bag and 2 down quilts, one for summer, one for winter. A lot of people on the channel will be aware that I use army surplus kit. The other part of Beck's Bug Out Survivor is for camping. Now, there is no direct correlation between trail hiking using the lightweight kit and of course survival kit, which we know is a lot heavier. I certainly wouldn't go trail hiking with my survival kit and vice versa. There's no correlation between the two at all. It's always a good measure to have a set of each. Something for your wild camping, such as an army surplus sleeping bag and your bivvy, and then you got your trail hiking on this side, which is completely different. It's all lightweight. It's all based on being compact. This is the size of my summer quilt. This is a duck down winter quilt. This one is rated 0 degree Fahrenheit or minus 17 degrees Celsius. And remember, that is when it bottoms out. That's when it stops working. Don't confuse that with a comfort level. I think you'd have a really warm sleep at 0 degrees Celsius. 10 below, you're gonna start feeling the cold a bit. At minus 17, where this is rated, your teeth are gonna start chattering. So this one is by Hammock Gear. It's a top quilt for a hammock. Generally they come about 44 inches. I opted for the 55 inch, which means if I take it to the ground instead of a hammock, I have enough stretch to wrap around me. So if I know I am going to be camping out at 0 degrees Celsius, which is freeze point, I really should be looking at something that says minus 15. This is minus 17, I'm well covered. Finally, I need to choose a pad to lie on. I've gone for this, which is the X-therm, and this here is Vital. If I was counting the grams, I might just put 20 breaths into that to blow it up, but with the bag I think I can do it in about 7 or 8. But for me, I'm taking the inflation bag anyway. 20 degree Fahrenheit quilt equates to minus 6 Celsius, and again I'm using minus 6 Celsius but using it in the summer. The quilt doesn't have a back section or a zip as where the sleeping bag does, and I'm going to put everything out, blow up the pad, and I'll talk about the problems I was having when I was using this here, which is a down sleeping bag. As soon as I've got a down quilt instead, the problems went away. I would definitely need my little air pad, and I have this here, which is a ground cloth. That would be the size I would take just to put my pad on. I'm going to start off by showing you what didn't work and why, which I think is going to be key importance to decide if you want to be a lightweight quilter. So this is a down sleeping bag. Goose feather quilts are a lot more expensive. I have goose feather quilts. Duck down is a cheaper alternative. Duck down, it's a slightly bigger pack size, but it's cheaper to manufacture the quilts using the insulation of duck feathers. I don't often keep the stuff sacks they come with. It's just easier to use a trash bag and just pop in it and quickly show you the problem I was having. Now, I haven't actually got my sleep mat down just for demonstration. Nice warm sleeping bag, and obviously I wouldn't be wearing a cotton t-shirt. I'd just totally strip off. Well, it's nice, it's comfortable. and toddle it round my neck like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'd be warm for the night just on top of the pad. I'm going to show you the problem that I had. Now I'm lying right on top of all the feathers on the bottom, and it's not insulating me. Only my pad will insulate me from the ground, not the feathers underneath, because I've squashed all the air out. Nice and warm on the top, around the sides. Turn to my side, I've squashed the insulation, and my back is cold. I feel that cold. I have to get back onto my back. I want to be able to sleep on my side and turn from my back to my side repeatedly and not lose any of the insulation. That's where a pad comes in, that's where a quilt comes in. Being on the ground like that, I'm going to be pretty much miserable, feeling the lumps and the bumps. Now I'm not particularly bothered about that. I can sleep on a washing line, but one thing I do hate is feeling the cold from the ground. I've warmed my body up and the ground is stealing every single degree, and that's called conduction. So that is where you need a good air pad. So now let's have a look at a proper quilt. 940 grams, a lot smaller. It'll even compact. At the front here is this piece, bit of elastic and a small toddle. On either edge, on the shoulders, little pop stud, and that just clicks around the back of my neck. So no zip, no back piece. Here's the foot box. Just bring the quilt over. I'll get them little pop studs like that and close up this gap. Oh, it's too hot for that. This is my winter quilt, and it's being filmed more or less beginning of summer, which is why I also have a summer quilt also. Now without the air pad, I would feel the cold, and air pads are very, very compact and warm these days. The one I've got is a lot of money. The weight of this x-therm regular max is 480 grams, and the weight of my winter quilt 940, 600 grams for my summer. And another thing we're going to need to do is to actually attach the pad to the quilt, because as I turn, I don't want it lifting up and exposing bare skin. So some people will take the quilt underneath the pad once it's blown up. Some people will take it and rest it on top, and there are ways to secure it. I personally tuck it underneath the pad itself. So rather than go out and buy speciality quilt straps for your pad, I'm going to show you how to make some. My quilt has these little loops. There's no need to overcomplicate things at this stage. So now to attach the pad to the quilt, I can use something like these little mitten hooks. I could use a band that goes around the pad, and on mine I have prusik loops. Another way, if the quilt is being tucked under the pad, we can look at something different. I can lace it up If your quilt hasn't got loop attachments, then you could think about these little crocodiles. I think we'll do a more traditional method where the band is placed around the pad. There you go, a prusik loop here and one here. So I can move the two prusiks to be closer together or further apart. I just need to attach the quilt onto it, and a large prusik, again I made it large for demonstration. It doesn't have to be. And this can slide under my back or give myself some ventilation and pull it away from my back. I'll use that webbing there to attach into this here, and I can do that all the way along on the attachment points, shoulder, middle, lower part. This cinches up and under me, and now when I turn from my back to my side, it shouldn't lift the quilt. My favoured method is to actually tuck the quilt underneath the pad like that, so when I get in I have an airtight seal. Some people don't like it because they say as you turn it rubs on your sleeping bag or your quilt in this case. I've not found that. I think that's a bit old wives' tale. It can't possibly move once you're on top of it. I had bought a dedicated quilting strap system. I'm not taking risks with stupid little gadgets that are sharp. That's why I use mitten hooks, and I've downscaled the size of the mitten hooks also now to the tiny. So with this I need to pre-attach the mitten hook on the left and the right of the quilt, and we get a little bit of cord, connect them together so they come underneath the pad. Again, I'm just using this kind of cord because it just shows better on camera, and this will wrap underneath the pad, and I only need a short length of elastic. I don't need it very long at all. The quilt is upside down, so is this, so you're seeing the underneath section and how this rolls under, and this length here doesn't need to be too long, just needs to go through the other little mitten hook. So long as these edges are tucked underneath my quilt, I can put another knot in here. Like I said, trial and error this bit, depending on the length you want. I could also do the same at this point here. There is an attachment. I've already done where my backside is, and I generally don't do the shoulder one. And you can see I've got a really good seal here, but I can take my feet out of there if I overheat. This gives me the feeling of being tucked in around both sides here. So now when I rotate from my back to my side, this element here shouldn't lift. So on my back, I'm now on my side. You can see how I can twist from being on my left side on my back and then onto my right side rotating. This quilt stays the same. I would be using this pad here as the insulation, which is why I've chose the best possible comfort and convection insulation as I could possibly afford. The actual quilt was secondary to the pad. Now I can also use them webbings, 3 each side of the quilt, and lace it. Now, lacing your quilt to the pad is really going to be great for if it gets really, really bitterly cold and you don't want air getting down your neck or around your shoulders, and you want to be sealed in underneath. For this, I need a length of shock cord and a double barrel cord lock. Starting from the bottom here, I bring the elastic through the webbing loop and across, come back to this webbing. No matter which one of these methods you may or may not choose to adopt, this is something you would only do the once. You wouldn't be doing this every time you get to camp. It's a job to do before you even pack. And the great thing about quilting is at any time, if I can't get onto the ground and I've brought a hammock with me, all I have to do is to deassemble whatever attachments I have for the ground. It's going to get that double barrel cord lock, one into that side there, one into that side here. At this point, if it was a more permanent thing, I could make a knot. Slide the pad into the quilt. So from the foot end, we come to the corseted area here, where it's all crossed, and I can get this tension either looser or tighter with this toddle here. Make that a bit looser. Spin the pad over, and I'm sealed from well below my calf to my backside to my shoulder. That quilt is not going to come off. Quilts are generally going to be a lot lighter than sleeping bags for the same temperature rating, because I haven't got a back piece, because I'm not lying on the back piece, I'm lying on a pad instead, which you'd have anyway, even in a sleeping bag. I haven't got the zip, so that's going to make it more compact also. The method I use the most is just one piece of cord like that with a hook at either end. When I'm ready, this piece then comes underneath the pad like that, tuck it under, and it's some of the best night's sleep I've had. Much better than a sleeping bag. Even in a sleeping bag, you should have a good pad anyway. So really, you're only making the switch from sleeping bag to quilt. It's no biggie. If a manufacturer wants to sell you a synthetic top quilt, they're not going to be as warm gram for gram. Hold off buying it. Say you can get a good duck down for double that, 160. I would save up and get a similar temperature rated duck down filled quilt rather than synthetic. Again, goose down now is going to be maybe twice as much as duck down, so that 160 could be 320, and I have paid 320 for that top quilt, the big winter one there, and it's been worth it. It's the one I use in my hammock. It's the one you've seen me with in my hammock all winter, and I've never woken up cold. This affords me to be able to trek a lot lighter and a lot warmer and a lot more compact. You can't slate somebody for using hyperlight trail hiking equipment and then try and equate it to army surplus, which is a lot heavier. And yes, it is more durable, but the different animals trail hiking and survival kit. Get yourself onto YouTube and watch a lot more trail hiking. So if these people are walking 1,300 miles over 6 to 8 months with their hyperlight kit like this, and it's all still intact, I think you've had your money's worth. That's why if I'm on the trail, I want to keep the pack light. I can walk further without any discomfort. And yeah, I'm super warm. I have a sill poly tarp, which I can put up like a pyramid on my trekking poles, one either side like that. I'm super comfortable. And yeah, I probably could go lighter, using lighter quilts and lighter pads. But I've only got 480 grams on this, 940 grams on this. And that's pretty much all I need. And I think my whole kit there is coming in at 4.8 kilos. Just add my food and my water, which I don't have in the pack anyway. I wear it on a belt. That is me done for hyperlighting.